maybe people's faith in my use of Linux will be restored. So my video about Linux on the desktop making me fat is already got more hate on it than it does positive upvotes, which I expected because most people don't even watch to the end of the video. But in order in order to prove my love for Linux, I'm going to proclaim something to you. I was using Geeks in 2020 before you were born. So there. And I absolutely love Geeks, GUIX. I think it's super awesome. Do I use it every day? No, and that's what this video is about. What do I think of Geeks and why you should or shouldn't use it? Okay, these are questions that people ask me frequently because they see me using Linux and they have all kinds of opinions about that. Linux people tend to have lots of opinions, and that's fine. That's great. That's what we love. We love the passion. I totally. I don't always love the passion because sometimes I'm on the other side of it. And so what is Geeks? Let's talk about that really quickly. And I'll tell you, as usual, I'll tell you a story. So in 2020, actually it was right before COVID. It was either right before or it was right. It was before COVID had really hit hard. I went to a Linux meetup, and I strongly encourage everybody to go to a Linux meetup. Talk about that in another video, building your professional learning network and your professional network in general, and how and several people got jobs from these meetups, including the guy with the $100,000 starting salary, another sysadmin, several coding in C. I helped all these people go discover these Linux meetups and go to these meetups, and I encouraged these particularly younger people to participate. And I had adults in the industry coming up to me and saying, "Oh my God!" So I would co-present with some of these, and I mean kids. Some of them are 10, 11, 12, and they were all like little Aaron Schwartzes, a lot of them. They're just absolutely brilliant autodidactic engineers, and I totally loved being around them. And so the geeks, so Bakari came in the video, bonsoir, bonsoir tout le monde, tous les francophones, il faut dire le bonsoir, le bon matin, enfin, ça m'est égal, je sais pas. À quelle heure est-il où va là que vous avez, enfin, là que vous êtes. Bakari is actually, I have a really good memory. Bakari is actually in our stream and is one of my French friends, viewers, that actually we geeked out like a long time ago, probably 4 years ago, around that same time, frankly. And we did totally geek out about, all things 80s and everything. And this video was prompted because Bakari is saying that they're learning Geeks and Emacs right now, and I'll do a separate video on Emacs. But I just wanted to mention that I actually really think Geeks is a great idea. And I first experienced Geeks at a Linux meetup where somebody presented it, and I was like, damn, this is really, really cool. The ability to layer on configurations on top of each other, and just the overall ease with which you can, patch a system and keep it up to date. I absolutely love it. I do. I think it's a fantastic thing. And one of the great things about the Linux community is you can be on the bleeding edge and you can experiment with these things. And I mean, a lot of the video that, if I were going to do a video about Arch, it's a lot of the same ideas. I love innovation, and since the 90s, when I've been using Linux, I have frequently had to make a decision about how edgy do I get in my use of Linux, and that's what this video is really about. It's not about necessarily geeks. It's about how edgy you want to be and when that might serve you and when it's going to work against you. And that's the real core crux of this video. It's not about geeks. I will mention geeks in the title to get people to watch it. But the real principle here is, I use Arch, by the way, right? People use it all the time. They joke about it because it's not easy to learn Arch, and you learn a lot by using Arch. Same thing would go for geeks, right? It's not easy to learn geeks. It's easier than Arch, but it's not easier to build your own system with Linux from scratch. I mean, distro people always have fun with this whole topic, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I really don't. The bottom line is, if you are in a position where you don't need to get a job, or you're not trying to supplement your current job with the skills that you probably should have as a foundation, then yeah, go to town, have fun, play with geeks, play with all this stuff that doesn't matter in the enterprise. And when I say those words, I immediately get people who are going to downvote me. The same people who downvoted me saying Linux on the desktop sucks and made me fat are the kind of people that are going to downvote me for telling you that some of you are going to be wasting time by learning Geeks. They don't want to hear it, or Arch. They don't want to hear that. They are so dogmatically, religiously obsessed with Linux that they cannot separate themselves from it and stand back and look at these things as tools, or as pursuits for a hobbyist, if you want to be. And that ability to not separate yourself is extremely dangerous. It's downright toxic. So the message here is, yes, please use Geeks. It's an amazing operating system. It's super duper cool. But if you don't know how to configure and maintain and manage an RPM system, a Red Hat system, as ugly and horrible and corporate and corrupt as it is, and it really is, right? I had Fedora stock. I'm sorry, I had Red Hat stock before Fedora was a thing, and I sold all my stock because out of disgust for the Fedora thing that happened back in 2000 and whatever, 2 or 1 or something. Maybe it was even 99, I don't remember. Because I was with you. I agree. I agree that some of the corporate shills that are taking over the Linux community, I agree that is a part of it. But we got to stay balanced here. There's also been a lot of good that's happened from these organizations that have come in control. That is not what this video is about. This video is about, is Geeks worth learning? And the answer is, for most of you, no, it's not. Geeks is not worth learning. It's going to be, at best, an entertaining distraction. And at worst, it's going to keep you from maintaining or learning the skills you need to get a job every day. So if you don't know Red Hat, like we mentioned, if you don't know how to administer and maintain and install Ubuntu, and I would argue that those are the two main ones, but it's even more valuable for you to learn a SUSE Linux distro than it is to learn the other ones. So the Geeks is a great distro. It's really cool. One of the things I think is the most positive about it, and I want to end on a positive note, is Geeks is really cool for a container distro, right? Because you can do some really fun things with it. If I actually break away and find time to play around with Geeks when I'm not, preparing to ride across America on my bike, which is way more fun to me than playing around with random Linux technology. I don't want to spend my time in my spare time today doing these things. I want to maintain the skills that are going to keep me employed and through retirement. So my priorities are different than yours. But if you are one of these people who likes to play around and dabble and not go outside, it's a joke. Don't get mad. So fine. Go play around, to your heart's content. Play around with Geeks, see what happens. And maybe you'll be ready in 10 years when it finally hits the mainstream, when people try to actually use it, right? And because that's about how long it takes. And to be fair as well, Linux was not even used in the enterprise. When I started using Linux anywhere in the enterprise, I actually recommended, there's a story about this that's related. I was running the internal internet for Nike.com. I got an award for it and all this stuff, but I set it up and I went to the IT people. I went to the infrastructure systems administrators. I was just a web person then. And I said, look, wouldn't it be great if we could run Linux here? We wouldn't have to pay the money for the Solaris license. You know what they told me? Oh no, we can't do that. We can't have that. I said, there's this project called Apache. It's free, and we don't have to pay the licenses for Netscape server, enterprise server. I know I'm dating myself there. You know what they said? Oh no, we want to have that. And I said, okay. And I kind of went back to my little, because I was running an entire Linux server in my garage. The point I'm trying to make is I get that there is a time and a place to be edgy and to experiment and to learn and to promote and build the technologies that are going to become mainstream technologies tomorrow. Absolutely. I totally am down with that. That's why I think Geeks is so cool. But it depends on where you are. And if you're trying to break in and get a job, if you're looking at Geeks and you're playing with it in your garage or something, the equivalent, then great. That should be a supplemental, line item on your resume. Make sure you put that stuff on your resume, by the way. playing around with Geeks in your spare time in your lab is a great resume bullet, because that's a way for you to say, hey, look, I actually really love Linux, to the point where I use my own free time to see where it's going to go and to become experimental with things. And I have a lab, and I know how to set up a lab, and I know I also, but I also have, I also have app skills and RPM skills and blah, blah, blah. I know how to do these things as well, because that's what they're going to pay you for. They're going to pay you to maintain and the systems and know how to build containerization systems and VMs and all that stuff that are using the tools of the day, the tools that are mainstream at that point, that were edgy 10 years ago. And I mean 10 years ago. We are now using Linux as a standard. It's now becoming a desktop option. It's now 2024, okay? And IBM was kind of ahead of the curve, letting me use Linux on the desktop in 2005. And I did. I ran Linux on my desktop for 10 years, right? So, but using enterprise Linux, even as a server in 1998, was unheard of, So, Geeks, GUIX, is the way to spell it. So, so I do think you should play with it. I think you should put it on your resume. I think it will prove that you are really committed to Linux and understanding it and exploring the many different amazing things. By the same token, I think you should play around with BSD. I would actually think, I would argue very seriously that understanding BSD inside and out is far more valuable than GUIX. In fact, I would suggest that BSD is a more significant operating system than Linux. I know I'm going to get hate for that, but it is. The things that are being done with BSD, there's more BSD in router devices and things like that matter than Linux. I mean, Linux is behind containerization and a bunch of other stuff, but I'm not going to have the BSD versus Linux fight. We're not going to do that fight right now. We'll do a separate video for that. But the point is that should you learn Geeks? Yes, you should, but not right now, and not if you're trying to get a job, unless you want to really, really dive in and say, hey, I want to do this as extra. So it's kind of a wishy-washy answer. What do I think of it? I think it's freaking amazing. I really sincerely do. I think it's fantastic, and I look forward to using it to practice building quick and dirty distros, particularly in containers and things like that. But I have no immediate need for that, and that's why I haven't been playing with it. Bottom line, I don't have the time to play with that. I need to get good with Ansible playbooks right now, because I need to deliver on an automatic deployment that's being triggered through an Ansible playbook that's being called through a webhook. These are all things that I have to learn and do today, that I'm about to turn the video off and go learn and do and implement. And when my time at work is my 6 to 8 hours a day is being spent doing those things, I don't have time to play around with Geeks, because at 5 o'clock, I'm going to get on my bike and practice biking for 3 hours so that I can practice crossing the country. If I was still trying to break in and get a job and everything, maybe I would allocate that time, those 6 hours or whatever, to learning Geeks, and that's a great thing. So just know where you are before you do that. If you have not fully comprehended how to administer and maintain, that includes understanding the startup scripts, and the way that services are run and all of that inside of Ubuntu server and Red Hat, then I would suggest spending time making sure you understand those technologies if your priority is on getting and maintaining a job. And my videos, as you already know, are primarily focused on that above all. There are tons of other people covering all the crazy stuff that's fun to play with, but doesn't really relate to an actual job. And I want my channel my content to be very, very particular about what's relevant in the industry. And frankly, Geeks isn't. It's just not. In fact, please, 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 save the hate. And if you know of anybody using Geeks in an enterprise capacity for a company that's being traded on the open stock market, not some tiny little edgy Silicon Valley company, if you know of any major corporations or organizations that are using Geeks today for production systems and they're not exploring it, please, please let me know. I really, really want to know. Okay. Thank you for everybody for that video. I got to go to work now and, make money.